Hey folks, welcome back. All this rancor and anger and people being upset about the Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry in South Africa, Andrew Whitfield, having been sacked by President Ramaphosa. The leader of his party, the Democratic Alliance, John Steenhuisen, was rightly upset and went into Parliament and made some very serious comments.
The President unilaterally removed a DA Deputy Minister without even giving his largest coalition partner an opportunity to discuss it with the member or his party. What makes matters worse is that this unilateral action is a result and a product of a flagrant double standard. While a DA Deputy Minister is removed for not getting a response to seeking permission to travel, there are members in the Cabinet who are implicated in the VBS scandal and looting. There are members in the Cabinet. There are members in the Cabinet.
Order, honourable members.
Who, despite apparently misleading Parliament over an attempt to deploy corrupt cadres to CETA boards, remains in the Cabinet. Serial underperformers and people implicated in state capture continue to sit around the cabinet table.
And then issued an ultimatum later to President Ramaphosa saying that if you're going to sack him, you need to sack all the corruption accused people who were mentioned in the Zondo Commission and other corruption cases who are currently ministers or deputy ministers in the government, in that cabinet.
If the President is wanting to clean up his cabinet, then we would like to suggest that he starts by sweeping outside his own front door before sweeping outside the DA's front door. We're giving the President 48 hours to show us clearly that he is a man of his word and that when he's willing to take action against DA members, he must take concomitant action against members of his own party.
Now, that's not an unreasonable expectation, but the issue an ultimatum was pretty interesting. And then, of course, Ramaphosa pointed out to Steenhuisen that, I can fire you. That's basically what he said. And that's true, too. So juvenile behavior going on all across the board here. But interesting thing, a lot of hypocrisy in the ANC, not just the corruption, but what about when other members of the cabinet have traveled abroad without permission? And not only just without permission, but misuse state resources to do it. Remember that? Now, it was kind enough of one of the people on Twitter to remind us of this. It slipped my mind initially, but then I thought about it and came across this tweet by Simon Grindrod on Twitter. In September of 2020, Defense Minister Mapisa Nakula flew to Zimbabwe on an Air Force plane without permission from Ramaphosa. Remember that? Misuse of government resources, taxpayer dollars. That's a criminal act, actually. And not only was she not fired for traveling abroad without permission, but she misused taxpayer resources and nothing happened to her. He did grant her permission after she came back. He retroactively gave her permission, so why don't you retroactively give Andrew Whitfield permission? Why? Because it's not about not having permission to go abroad, because if that was the case, he would have been fired 3 months ago when he came back from the trip, not today. It's not about that. And Ramaphosa can front all he wants, but the reality is we know it's not about that, because that's a rather harsh measure when your own minister commits fraud and travels abroad without permission, but then doesn't lose her job and gets shuffled around to other jobs. It's about Whitfield's attention to corruption, and more importantly, it comes immediately after the mention of the deputy president's name related to alleged corruption in the national lottery program. That's when, suddenly, you have to fire the deputy minister. Now, why is that? Where's the transparency here? There's no transparency, just opaqueness. And there's hypocrisy. Because not only are there corruption accused, and likely guilty people in the parliament, you've got a president accused of corruption, misuse of his protection detail, perversion of the means of justice, $580,000 stuffed in furniture at Pala Pala. No criminal charges. They have the information, they have the money, they know about it. He gives an explanation. And the ANC covers it up by having Parliament say he didn't violate any ethics issues. We're not talking about ethics, we're talking about criminal code here. customs violations, currency violations, potentially money laundering, perversion of the means of justice, misusing the security detail, and also fraud committed by the South African Police Service, because in their annual report that covered that period when Pala Pala was broken into, and then his detail went and coordinated and colluded with the Namibians to grab these people, bring them back, and they alleged they were tortured. I wasn't there. That's their alleging. So, hypocrisy is quite strong here. So you're going to fire a deputy minister because he did have permission to go abroad. Really? Okay. He works for the government. He has to have approval. But what about Mapisa Akula in September 2020 during the COVID nonsense? Yeah. So, folks, there's definitely something to see here. Not a fan or an opponent of Andrew Whitfield, or a fan or opponent of John Steenhuisen or the Democratic Alliance. But something really stinks here, and that's the bottom line. And the president can threaten John Steenhuisen all he wants, because Steenhuisen serves at his pleasure. But there's a lot to see here. And don't believe the nonsense that the ANC is spewing, or that Ramaphosa is spewing. Zweli Mkhize, Digital Vibes, all but convicted, but never charged with a crime, after the Hawks Special Investigating Unit found evidence that he was clearly involved in corruption, according to them, in the Digital Vibes case. Ace Magashule, Vereda Dairy Farm scandal, the asbestos tender, Santita Gumeda. We could do this for hours. It seems at times there's more corruption accused or guilty members of the ANC than there are honest people. It seems that way anyway, if you read the newspapers every day. But Andrew Whitfield being dismissed because he didn't have permission to go abroad, that's a total farce and a crock of nonsense. Don't buy it for a second. Don't buy it for a second. Why was the defense minister not fired for the same reason? And not only did she go abroad without permission, she basically stole an Air Force aircraft when they were still flying. Good luck stealing one today. I mean, well, she misused it. That's misappropriation. That's theft. And afterwards, he granted her permission and covered it all up. Yeah. Nothing to see here, of course. Yeah. Thanks. Cheers, folks.